Today we have a pretty special video because we have the Snapmaker, which is a 3-in-1 machine as a 3D printer, a CNC cutter, and a laser engraver. So I'm pretty excited to see how all this works. So in this video, we're gonna unbox it, set it up, and make some samples. All right, so let's get started. All right, so this is the box that the Snapmaker comes in. It's not very large, but it is quite heavy at almost 10 kilograms. And as you guys can see, I got a little bit of damage on my box, but it appears to be all well. All right, so let's get this thing unboxed. So it appears that we have a retail box inside of the carton box. And that's what the retail box looks like, and it's very nice. So we can see here the picture of what the printer looks like. Turn your desktop into a workshop, 3D printing, laser engraving, and CNC carving. Very premium box. So in the back here we can see a lot more information. So it does say easy assembly, that's a plus, and supported software for this machine. So here we can see all the specs of the different tools. Well, I'm super excited to open this up. So there's a couple seals here on the top. We got a cut. Then we got a tab, and it should just open up. And so right on the top, this is what we see. So we got a pretty large, I guess, manual is what this is. And it says, welcome to the Snapmaker family. Very interesting. We'll open this up and take a closer look in a second. And so it looks like we have the black soft foam, and there's a thin layer on top. And here we can see our machine parts. So we got the 3 different heads. Looks like our frame pieces. Here we have a box that says accessories and tools. Looks like the brains of some sort over here. And what appears to be a spool holder. Very interesting. Everything is very high quality. Feels really industrial. All right, so let's check out what this thing is. So this looks like the brains of the Snapmaker. So we have all our ports here, 1 through 6, and this is where everything plugs in from the printer. And then on the other side, we have our functions, which is on and off button. Looks like screen connection and a USB port for reading files. And this one's for connecting to the computer. And there appears to be a little fan behind here. Quite a unique design. So here we have a box that says accessories and tools, and we'll check out what's in here a little bit later in the video. So here we have the frame pieces, and it is aluminum extrusions, stepper motors inside, and the lead screw, you can probably see it. And so the way the axes travel is they have 4 rollers. You can maybe see them, little white rollers in there, and there's 4 of them, and they're just pressing against outward to these channels here, and that's how it rides on its track. So there's no belts or anything. Everything is on lead screws, looks like. So very precise and linear here. And just an excellent build quality. So there are 3 of these, and they appear to be all the same, I think. So yeah, they do look similar. And they all have this little wire that runs to the control board. And right over here, we have the 3 function tools. So the first one here being our 3D printer head. You can see it says 3D printing on here, and there is a large button, and that looks like to release the extruder arm where our filament will feed on the top here. It is a direct drive, and everything is inside of here. We can see kind of the stepper motor through those grills. Here we have a cooling fan on the bottom. Not sure exactly what this is for. Parts cooling, I think, because we do have another fan on the other side, and that's probably for the heat break. And we do have a 0.4 nozzle, and you guys can see where we will plug in to connect to the main board. Very nice, very impressive. So here we have the laser engraver tool, and does tell us to wear our safety glasses, and we can see the laser under here. I don't know if you guys can see, but it does say 200 milliwatt output. And we also get a cooling fan to cool it off. And for the last tool, we have the CNC carving. And what this has is a pretty large motor that spins the shaft where we're going to put our tool in, and that's how we're going to do the carving. And on the back here, this is where they connect to the axes. So under the laser engraver, there was a little warning card that tells you how lasers are dangerous and to take proper precautions when using it. All right, and so that's our first layer, and so far it's very impressive. Now as we go deeper, we can see we have quite a few more things, and it's all labeled and packaged so nicely. So let's start on this side with the filament. So we do get a whole roll of filament. It's got this nice little cover on it, which is Snapmaker branded PLA in this white color, and it is 1/2 kilogram. I like the clear spool. So over here we have a box that says safety glasses, and this is going to be 2 pairs of glasses, which these green ones are for the laser. So when you're using the laser, you definitely want to wear this because lasers can be dangerous for your eyes, so don't disregard wearing these glasses. And then we have just normal clear safety glasses for the CNC part of it. So here we have the power adapter. Definitely love how they packed everything. Feels very special, I guess. So we have a 24 volt 5 amp power supply. So here's something interesting. Okay, so this is a USB drive in this nice chrome finish. Very cool. So here we have the build plate for the 3D printer, and you guys can see the size of it. It's not very large. And by the way, this bed looks like it is heated. So underneath the bed was another build platform, and this looks like it's for the CNC part and also maybe the laser plate. So it's a whole extra plate with also another extra build sticker just in case you need one. And I'm still fascinated at how nice and high quality all these parts are. All right, so we got a few more things left. Here we have a box that says cables, and we'll open that once we start assembling. So here we have a little bracket that looks like is some kind of holder. It has magnets in it, and I'm guessing it's maybe for this screen here. So it does have a detachable screen that looks really nice, and it's also made out of metal. So I'm thinking that maybe this bracket, okay, yeah, so that's what happens. So the bracket accommodates the screen like this. So the great thing about this is you can just pick this up, you know, push what you got to push, and then put it back in. All right, so it looks like almost everything except for one more piece down here. And this looks like the main base of the printer, and it's a really nice chunky piece of, I guess, aluminum is what this is. Feels really good though, and it's also got this really nice gray finish. All right, so that's everything for the box. So let's go ahead and put it away. And I do have to say, guys, this is probably the best experience I've had unboxing a 3D printer as far as the way everything is presented and packaged. All right, so we got all of our parts laid out. Let's go ahead and open up this welcome to the Snapmaker family. So right off the bat, we get a little calibration card is what it looks like. I think this is to set the tolerances between the nozzle and tools. We also get 4 stickers. So the welcome card and how to contact them. So here we have the quick start guide, and they open like a calendar from up to down. So it looks like quite a lot of good information, and it's all written in a few languages all at once. And so here we have step 1 of the assembly process, and there's a total of 10 steps. Very nice manual. So we also get a guide for laser engraving, and this is really nice because I don't have too much experience with the stuff. So these are really nice little guides here that kind of show you and explain of how to do everything correctly. And we also get one for the CNC carving. Very cool. So before we start the assembly process, let's go ahead and look at what's in these 2 boxes. So this one says cables. And it's quite impressive how everything is packed. It's all individually baggied. So these look like interconnectors. And then we have the USB cable that connects from the printer to the computer. So this one has our accessories and tools. Some bolts, more smaller bolts. Looks like knobs. An extra heat block with the nozzle. Some tools in here, spatula, some Allen wrenches, and some tweezers. Looks like a screwdriver set, some rubber feet, more bolts, some kind of metal brackets. Here looks like we get a couple carving bits for the CNC and what appears to be a Velcroed strap. So let's open up our manual here to step 1. And step 1 is going to be attaching our feet to the main base, 4 rubber feet and 4 M410 bolts. So here we have the plate, and looking at it, we can see some arrows here. But at this step, what's more important is that we see that there's all these holes that are wallowed out. So this is going to be actually our bottom. So let's grab the rubber feet, and these are really nice quality. They have a metal insert, and we're going to put one on each corner. And so we're also going to need 4 M4 by 10 bolts, and I think these are it. Now they're not labeled, but the manual does have a 1-to-1 ratio picture, so you can compare it to this and scale it. So yeah, we're just going to take the little bolt, go through the hole of the foot, and then there's threads on each corner that the bolt will start through. We are going to need some Allen wrenches, and there are a couple included, pretty nice quality ones. Here's what our spatula looks like, and some tweezers. Interestingly enough, these are too small for these bolts, so there's actually another tool that's actually really nice, and this is like a dedicated screwdriver, and we have a little insert here that has Phillips on one side and a hex on the other. Since we need that side, we're going to put the Phillips in, and then we're just going to tighten it down, and now we have a dedicated little screwdriver. I'm going to start the foot, and you want to tighten this until it, you know, starts to have some resistance, and then that should be good enough. You definitely don't want to over tighten this. So yeah, same thing for the other 3 corners. All right, and so that's our first step. So we got the platform build. So step 2 is attaching the heated bed to one of the linear modules. And we're gonna need the 4 bolts that look like that. So this is what the bolts look like. Our heated bed, and we can see the mounting points underneath. Very nicely constructed. So we're gonna lay that upside down. And then we're gonna grab any of the 3 linear motors here. So it doesn't really matter which one. And with the plug going towards the plug where the bed is, basically this way, we're just gonna line up the outer holes on the bed, and that's where these individual knobs will go into. So yeah, you can see here the wire, the bed plug, then each bolt on each corner. And these just need to be hand tightened, and the reason they are like this is because when you want to do the CNC, you can pull these out real quick and change the platform to use the other tools. All right, so our bed is connected to this y-axis is what this is going to be now. So for step 3, we're just going to connect what we just built to the base. Now again, take note that there are arrows, and this time they're pointing this way, and our plugs are pointing away from them the other way. So if we flip it around, we can see, so that means that our plugs will go that way. But we do need to flip this around, so we'll just lay it down on the bed and lay this on top. And we'll look here on the bed, these are the 4 holes where the bolts will hold them together. So, and it is evenly spaced between each other. So we're gonna grab 4 more of this same bolts we used for the feet and run them down. We're gonna tighten these up really good. And this is what we have so far. So before I continue anymore, I did make a mistake. I just realized that. So these are 4x10, and the bolt that we used just now were the 4x8s. And the bag with a bunch of little bolts are the 4x8s. And there's another bag with the 4x10s that were supposed to go into the feet. So I'm gonna go ahead and change all these out, and we'll go to the next step. So for step 4, we're gonna be installing the Z-axis module, and that's gonna go to the side here. So let's grab one of the 2 that are left. And if we look at the wire here, that's gonna go to the front this way. And these 4 bolts will line up with the threads underneath, just like that. So we're gonna need to tip this over while holding it all together. So we're gonna go ahead and snug these up really good. And this is what we have so far. So for step 5, we're gonna be installing the screen holder, which is this guy here. And we're gonna be using the same bolts that we've been using, the 4/8. And that's gonna go right here up front, just like that. So again, our bolts will go from the bottom and then into the holder. All right, and that's what that looks like. And I guess we can go ahead and put our screen on here. Very nice. So far, the building process is very straightforward and quite simple. So here we have step 6, which is going to be installing our X-axis. And that's literally going to go right here, something like this. But the best way to look at it is from the back, and that's what the manual shows. So your wire is going to go to the front on this side. And we're mounting it on not the last hole, but this one here on this plate. Again, we're using the same N4/8 bolts. So hopefully you guys can see. This is the way it goes, but I'm going to give you guys a little better look here in a second. Well, I just realized I put it in the wrong hole already. So it goes on the inside and one on the bottom. And on this side, it actually goes on the outside hole, not the inside like the other side. Go ahead and snug these up. And this is what it looks like. So you guys can see these are on the inside, and our cable is to the front towards the display. And on the other side, it's just going to go on the outside, and there's no other way to put it, so it'll make sense. All right, so we're getting really close to having a built machine. So for the next part, which is step 7, we're going to be installing the printing module. So there's the 3D printing, this one here, and it simply just goes over the bracket. And we're using the same little bolts. And so these threads here will line up with this bracket. And so the top 2 bolts will go through the lower on the outside, and the bottom 2 also on each side there. So yeah, so far this is really a pretty intuitive build, and I feel like pretty much anybody can do this. So we're really starting to look like a 3D printer now. So for step 8, we're going to be installing the control board, and that's going to require the 4 M428 bolts, and there's a bag of those. So looking at the back of the machine, the fan part is going to go down like this, and we're going to mount it to the second thread down from the top. So just like that. So we're going to have 2 bolts here and then 2 bolts on the bottom. All right, so this printer is starting to really look interesting. So step 9 is installing the spool holder, which goes right above the control module. So we're going to need 2 M428 bolts. And if we look at the spool holder, there's like a little cutout here that actually goes to the top like this. So just like that. And that looks good right there. Well guys, that was pretty much our last step. The rest of it is plugging everything in. And they do have like a little diagram here that shows you where everything goes. So there's 2 different plugs. There's a RJ45 and a RJ25. Let's go ahead and open them up. And so you can see they're actually different. You're not going to mix them up. So what's interesting is they decided to label all these from port 1 to port 6. I think I would have preferred if they would have labeled what each port was, like X-axis, Y-axis, print head, whatever. I guess that's okay. The only reason I'm saying that is because if you didn't have the manual or you had the printer somewhere else and you disassembled it or whatnot else and had to assemble it again, you wouldn't really know what goes where unless you had this diagram. Because this diagram here shows us that port 1 goes to the hot end, looks like, and that's going to be the bigger plug, RJ45. So we're going to click that into port 1, and then the other end will click into the hot end. So now we go to port 2, and that is the X-axis. So our X-axis is this motor here, and we can see the wire coming from it. And so we're going to grab it and plug it into port number 2. So for port 3, we have the Y-axis, which is down here. So that should simply just plug in right here. Port 4 appears to be empty. So port 5 is the Z-axis, which is this motor here, and the wire comes out on the front of it here. So that is port 5. And so our RJ25 wire is actually for the heated bed, which is over here, and we're going to plug one end to it and the other end to number 6, or port 6 I should say. All right, so that should be good right there. So we got all of our ports in except for the 4, which nothing plugs into there. Now we do still have the other side. So here we can see our power port and also our screen port, which is right here. And on here it actually shows you a picture of what everything is, even though it still doesn't line up. So in any case, it's pretty self-explanatory of what these ports look like and what they do. And just like that, guys, our printer is built. So as you can see, that was not very hard and actually quite simple and enjoyable process. So after plugging everything in, it goes into more detail of how to use the printer and level the bed and things like that. So let's go ahead and take a closer look at this thing, and then we'll plug it in and power it up. So this is a really stunning looking printer. Just looking at it gives you a feeling of very high quality and just a thought through design and engineering. So if you're a person that really likes high-end quality things, this is definitely for you. Now the first thing that really stands out is this really small build size here. Probably not enough for most people. So if you're going to get a 3-in-1 Snapmaker, I would definitely try to stretch for the mid model, and you'll be able to do a lot more things with that printer. But with that said, this size here is very compact and can fit anywhere on a desktop. So if you're doing small things for your projects, then this obviously is perfect. So we got a really clean and a nice design, very modern. The color of all the metal is kind of like a space gray. Everything runs on the lead screws, so that should give us excellent precision. We have a heated bed. Our control screen is removable and can be held like this and operated without always trying to bend down. So that's really cool. And the way it attaches is quite unique too, magnetically. There's a screen protector. Let's go ahead and take that off. So a very nice screen and just a clean look. So wiring is managed quite well. There's not too many wires everywhere. So we got a really interesting control panel here that mounts on the back, and it's really out of the way and just looks really cool. Our on and off switch is right here. And this is where we're going to connect our power cable. So if you want to connect straight to the computer, you can do that through this USB port. And we also have the normal USB port for inserting the thumb drive. And not to mention the quite unique looking spool holder. And we do get the 3-in-1 capabilities, which makes this machine a very unique and versatile tool. And changing the tools is not very difficult. All you do is unplug from the top. Then you got 4 bolts to take out from the back, and then install the new module and plug it in. For the build plate, you would do the same thing. There are 4 knobs underneath that you just unscrew, and then you replace it with this one. And the reason you would need this plate is because you have mounting holes here that accommodate these brackets, which hold down the item that you want to CNC. So this plate here, you'd want to change once you're doing the carving. But for lasering, obviously, you can just go right on top of here. All right, so I went ahead and plugged in the power adapter, and we can see it glows a little green light here. So the other end, we're going to plug into the printer. It's right over here. All right, so now what we're going to do is switch the power on. I'll push it down, and it powers up. So I do hear some fans, and there is the fan on the back of the control board, and we also have some fans that turn in here. And we can see what our display looks like. So let's go ahead and pull it off here. So very nice quality. On the top we have the nozzle temperature and then the heated bed. For some reason it says NA at the moment. I'm not sure why that is, but we'll figure it out. Looks like progress bar. Stop files, controls, and settings. So let's go into control and click on home axes and see if all the axes work. So let's go ahead and click that. And there it goes. Alright, so the X and the Y seem to work, and now the Z is coming down, and that works also. So let's go ahead and see if we can level the bed. So we're going to click on settings, and we have calibration, frequently asked questions, and about. On about we have about the printer, FAQs is a QR code, and calibration. Alright, so it looks like it's homing. Okay, and so we have a menu that comes up, 4 corners of the bed. And on the very bottom here we can see up and down, and this is how we're going to bring it up and down according to which parameter we use. And it goes quite fine with 0.05 millimeters. So let's go ahead and grab the little cards here that are included. So on the back of this card there's a little diagram here that shows where each port connects. So that's cool. So if you don't have to have your manual out to reassemble it, you can just have this card with it. And this is a really thin sheet of paper that is a calibration card, and it's quite thin, so they want you to get quite close. So one side is for 3D printing and CNC, and the other one is actually for a laser. It has a little dot where you can focus the laser in order to get a precise beam. Alright, so I'm going to click on one here, and it's going to move to our first corner. We're going to grab our little card and set it right between the nozzle and the bed. And as we can see, it's way off right now. It's much higher than it needs to be. So we're going to choose the 0.5, and we're going to start coming down pretty quick. So once we get pretty close, we're going to move to 0.2, start coming down a little easier, or in smaller increments. Put our card under there. So now we're really close. I'm going to go to 0.5, start coming down. And then we're going to check it as we're coming down. Okay, grabbed it. Perfect right there. Now we're going to go to corner 2. So again, it starts off really high. And there we go. Looks like that's it right there. So now we're going to go to the third corner and do the same thing here. And our last corner. Alright, that should be good right there. Now once we get all the 4 corners done, we're going to click on save up here. And that's going to save everything. And remember the distances in between. So let's go ahead and try to preheat the nozzle. We're going to go controls, change filament, and confirm. Okay, so it looks like it's warming up. Now I don't see anywhere on here to control the bed temperatures. I guess we'll see how that works. So while that's preheating, let's go ahead and grab our thumb drive. And on the side of the printer, we're going to plug it in to the control board. So it looks like we're up to temperature. And you can add it and subtract it right here if you want it more or less. So let's go ahead and grab our filament. I really like this roll, very nice looking. And so we're simply just going to put it here on the spool holder. Now the part that's kind of ironically weird is that the spool holder is actually not in the direction it needs to be, towards the head. Kind of an interesting design. It should be sitting like this, not like this. So maybe we have to unspool it this way. A little bit strange for sure. But in any case, here on top of the tool head, we can see there's a little hole, and this is where the filament is going to go in. And then we're going to push this button to release the arm inside, and we're going to push the filament all the way down. And we can see it's coming right out, purging. So that part is quite simple and easy. But the spool holder here still doesn't make any sense. Maybe if we go down, kind of counterintuitive, but be a little more controlled here. Alright, so the filament is ready to go. I think we can go ahead and see if we can read those files off of that thumb drive, and sure enough we can see that the files tab is available now. So let's go ahead and click on that, and there is nothing in here, interestingly enough. So I guess they didn't include any kind of test files. So let's go ahead and jump to the computer and see if we can download the Snapmaker software. All right, so here we are at the computer, and I went to the Snapmaker website and downloaded the software, which is called Luban, I guess. And they do have Windows and Mac versions. So I downloaded the Mac, and the installation process was very easy. So let's go ahead and open it up, and this is what it looks like. So over here we can see it says original. This is the one we have, and you can choose from the different many kinds they have. And so on the top left here, we can see we have our main functions, which right now we're in 3D printing. This is this button, and then here we have laser, and then we have CNC. So let's start with the 3D printing. And this very one on the top is when you connect to your computer, you can actually control the printer from your computer in this dashboard here. So I never used the slicer, but it looks pretty straightforward. Let's grab a file. I got this Benchy here, and you can see we just drag it in and it shows up. So here you guys can see we can move it around. We have some hot buttons here that we can do a few things. We can also scale it, make it larger or smaller, and rotate it. So pretty basic stuff, but pretty much all you need. Now the more important things are going to be on this side on the right, and this is where we're going to choose our material, PLA or ABS, the diameter. Then we got some standard settings here, which are all fine. But more importantly, we're going to go to printing settings, and here we can really adjust a little better how we want to print. So we can do recommended or customized. Under customized, you can go through every option here and kind of, choose more precisely. But under recommended, it's quite simple. Fast print, normal print, and then high quality. So in that adjusts the travel speeds, the outer walls speeds, and things like that. So I'm going to use the normal quality mode, and as simple as that. Now we can just click this generate G code, and if I do that, it's going to slice it. We can see it here on the bottom, and here we can see all of the different layers, and we actually can scroll through them on this bar here. So all the different colors indicate these different things. Now we also have travel that's not clicked. If we click that, we'll be able to see where the nozzle travels. But yeah, seems like a pretty easy and straightforward to use slicer. So once you're done slicing it, what you're going to do is we're going to export the G code to file. So this button all the way at the bottom. And that's just going to ask us where we want to save it. We'll just say desktop, and it's going to create that file. And so this is the G code file that we can transfer now to the thumb drive and then plug it into the back to print. Now if we click on this load a G code to workspace, that's going to take us to the dashboard on the very top here where we're connected to the printer, and we can push the print from our computer straight to the printer without, having to use the thumb drive or move files around or anything like that. You can just print straight from here, and we can see here we have this file ready to go. All right, so now that we made the G code file, we can go to files, and we can see it right here. It says 3D Benchy. So let's click on it, and we'll click start. And so our nozzle's heating up, but our heated bed is not available for some reason. So I'm not sure if maybe some connectors are not working or what, but so it does preheat pretty fast on the nozzle. So believe it or not, guys, even though on our heated bed it says NA, I can feel that it's hot still. So it is heating up, but it hasn't registered on the screen, so maybe the thermostat on it doesn't work. So it's been over 5 minutes and nothing has happened, and the bed is super hot. I think it just keeps heating it, but it doesn't know when to stop. So I'm gonna go ahead and turn it off. I'm gonna see if I can figure out what's going on. So after fiddling around with it just for a second, it just started working. So I think I just had a bad connection there on the wire. So I'm going to keep a close eye on it and make sure everything's okay. But it is working now. We're having a reading on the bed. So let's go back to files and start this Benchy again. So you guys can see we're heating up. And the bed is going all the way to 70. Alright, so we should be starting here in a second. And there it goes. And our level looks perfect. Look at that. So yeah, the leveling system works great. Alright, so it looks like we've started and our Benchy's printing. And the stepper motors are definitely heard. I'm going to bring my microphone in so you guys can hear it. So there's definitely stepper motor sounds, and they're quite pronounced, so this is not a silent driver here. Alright, so I'm just gonna let this thing print out, and we'll see what comes out. Alright, our first print is done. It looks like the screen just kind of goes black. It says tap to activate. So it took 2 hours and 32 minutes to print this Benchy. It looks like our heated bed is working just fine. So let's see how easy it is to take the Benchy off. Okay, so it popped right off. All right, cool. So this looks like a pretty good build material here. So because this is white filament, it'll be a little bit hard to see, but if we look at the reflections, we can see the layers are sitting really good. There is a vibration in the print, kind of. You kind of see the pattern, I guess, maybe. And over here we had, looks like a little bit of issue. And also there's a pretty pronounced line here. So it didn't turn out perfect, but overall not too bad. And also we have something strange here going on the top. That might have something to do with the way the filament is fed into the extruder, because it's kind of going in sideways. But yeah, overall pretty decent. Now we do have some stringing, and that probably can be adjusted in the slicer. So as far as this first print and this benchy, I would say it's just okay, I guess. Definitely not great. So I'm gonna put my own darker filament and slice a couple other things, and we'll print those out. Then after that, I do want to try the laser. All right, so I printed out a couple more models with a black silky filament where we can see a lot better of the finish and the overall quality. So let's look at this benchy. So we can see here that it's much better than we initially thought on the white filament. So the layers are sitting very well. We do have some ghosting here, we can see around here, and that's the x-axis. We still have this weird thing in the front here. Not sure what that's about. And the bed's holding the print very well, and there's no issues there. So yeah, I would say for overall average printing, it does quite well. And there we go, it comes off quite easy. So let's look at the X first, and we can see there's a bit of ghosting there, and there's some kind of interesting pattern in the print. Here's our Y. So the Y doesn't seem to have any ghosting. The interesting pattern is still in there. This is the X wall and the Y wall. And if we look at the corners, they look great also. So the layers go down really good on this 3D printer. Now, since this machine is not just a 3D printer, we can give it a little bit of slack because of its multi-capabilities. So let's go ahead and change out the head module. So we're gonna unplug it. Let's flip it around, and we're gonna just remove the 4 bolts. And just that simple, our printing head is off. So now we're gonna grab the laser head. We're gonna line it up the same way and reinstall the 4 bolts. And so now what we gotta do is just plug it in, and we have the laser. Theoretically, we should have different controls here. So let's hit on controls, and sure enough, we have a laser CNC on and off. So the set origin is going to position the laser from where it needs to start, which is the middle. Now, before you turn on the laser, you definitely would want to put on these green glasses, because these are gonna protect you from the wavelengths. Actually, guys, let's go ahead and replace this bed, because this is our 3D printing bed. And so that's quite simple. We're just going to take the bolts underneath out, and then we're going to unplug it. Technically, we can just unplug that from the printer and move this out of the way for now. And grab our new plate, which doesn't look like it matters, which is top or bottom. And we're going to install it. All right, so that looks good right there. Put this display back in. Let's power it back on. Now, we do still need to focus it, obviously, also. And actually, I just realized that there is a little light on right now. It's very faint, you can kind of see it. But I think the idea here is to bring it to the center. So try to line it up here, pretty close to the center. So that's about center right there. You guys can probably see that little dot. So what we need to do now is grab this little calibration card, and it has a little dot on there. Now, before we do adjust this, what you want to do is you want to put your material in first, whatever you're lasering into, and then this card on top as reference. We know we need to go down a bit, so let's go ahead and go down 1 millimeter at a time, and our point is getting smaller. See if I can give you a better view, guys. But yeah, as we go down, the point seems to be getting smaller. So the idea here is to try to make the point as fine as possible. And I think we're getting really close right there. I can see the point getting really sharpened. So I went down quite a bit. So depending on what you're engraving to, you might need to go up and down. Okay, yeah, it's getting really fine now. So and I'm gonna keep going here. Okay, it seems like the more I go down, okay, it's getting worse now. I'll go back up. So you're just trying to get the sharpest point you can. And I don't know if the camera is going to pick up, but that thing is tiny now. So it's definitely no bigger than this dot on this part, maybe even smaller. So on our control panel, we can go ahead, also click set origin, because we want it to be set right there is where the starting point will be. So if I turn on the laser right now, it should burn into that cardboard. So let's do a little quick test. Make sure you're wearing your glasses. And there we go. And it's actually cutting. And you guys can see we just did a little engravement right there. All right, cool. So now that we got the laser all set up and ready to go, let's go to our software and make a file to engrave something. Okay, so we're back in the Snapmaker software. So over here we're on 3D printing right now, but let's go ahead and go to a laser engraving. So when we go here, we get this screen, and here we can see this is our platform, which is 120 by 120. Here is our working space. So I'm not too familiar with this kind of stuff, but it looks pretty straightforward. Here we have the different functions, and on the top here we have more controls that we can do. So let's go ahead and just start with some text. So I clicked on the T and got the Snapmaker. So we'll just work with that. So here we can adjust everything about this text, the configurations. So I just clicked on process in the actions, and that looks like it generated the logo for lasering. And we can see how it cut out and made an outline around all the letters. So this is how fast the printer moves. This is how fast it moves when it's actually lasering. Multi-passes, so it goes around twice. I guess we'll just leave it everything the way it is. So it seems pretty straightforward, but definitely something to get used to, especially if you're new to this stuff, because this is kind of a different workflow. So let's just click down here where it says generate G-code, and if we do that, it's going to create the G-code, and then we can export it down here to our desktop, which we can save, and then we'll put it on our thumb drive and take it to the machine. Now you can also obviously work from the computer like we talked about before through that USB cable, and then you just click this load G-code to workspace. So, but yeah, as far as how to use everything, it looks quite intuitive. And also, if we look down here, all the way on the top here, we can see we are in the process section. If we go back to the editor, we can actually edit this part of it. So if we're done with this, we can delete it. If you go down here on the very bottom, there's these little shapes. If you click on them, here you can load some projects to kind of get started. So like this feather here. So I might do this, and when you're in here and when you're in the editor, you can choose the way you do it: black and white, grayscale, vector. So you can adjust the image here also. You do have quite a few options to get the burn just right, and here you can choose the type of burn that it does. So it gives you a little preview here right in the middle, so you can see exactly what you're going to be getting. I feel like with this, you know, it's a little bit of trial and error depending on what you're engraving, but overall seems to be pretty straightforward. Alright, so now that we have our file, we can go ahead and engrave it. Now it's probably a good idea to try to secure this, whatever you're cutting, somehow, and that's what these little brackets are for. But because my cardboard here is quite a bit larger, I'm just going to use this little clip here, just so it doesn't move around when it's engraving. The y-axis will be moving, so there might be vibrations or whatnot else in them. So let's go to Files, and there we can see the code that we made. So we're going to click on that, Start. And there it goes, it just starts right up. And you guys can see the process. Hopefully, if the camera is picking it up, it is acting a bit funny, but it seems like it's engraving very nice and precise. And when you do lasering, guys, make sure you're in a well-ventilated area, because you know there's going to be smoke, and plus you want to be careful about the light itself. Alright, and that is it. It's finished. So it took about 5 minutes, looks like. That's what it says on the display. It turned out really good, and I'm really happy with how fine it is, meaning that you can burn something really fine and get a good result. So the focus on the laser seems to be spot on. So I went ahead and burnt this feather, and it really turned out well. You can tell by all of the details, it's quite amazing. And also we see that the laser is capable of lighter and darker burns. So we got pretty good dynamic range. So this is quite impressive. Yeah, very excited of how the laser part of this printer works. Now we do have one more tool to try out, which is this CNC, and I think this might be the more advanced as far as setting it up, because it could be dangerous because we got a sharp spinning blade on here. So let's go ahead and take this head off, and we'll put the CNC on. Go ahead and plug that in. So they did include 2 tips. We got these little protectors over them. We can see one of them is quite aggressive here, and the other one is more fine. So I think to start off, I'm going to use this one here because it would make more sense. It has more finer point, and we don't have to go in as deep if we didn't want to. And so installing it is quite simple. There's a little set screw right here that we're going to loosen. Now you probably want to leave the protector on so you don't cut yourself. But yeah, the tip will simply go in there, and then the set screw will tighten up and hold it in there. All right, then we can remove this, and we should be good to go. So I do have a couple pieces of this pressed wood here, so I'm not sure if this is ideal, but we're going to try it out. And so we need to somehow install it onto this bed, and the way we're going to do it is with these brackets here, and there's 4 of them. So using the extra long bolts we have, we're going to go through the bracket and then choose which hole we want. I'm going to go farthest away here. And that's going to give us clamping onto our wood piece here that we're trying to engrave into. So it's probably best to get closest as you can to the wood. And then we'll just kind of go off to the side like this. That makes more sense, I think. So the whole idea here is we're going to secure the wood to the plate. Now be careful with this sharp end. I probably should have left the protector on there because I kind of did slice myself already on the finger a bit. So this thing's probably good to be on there until you actually use it. All right, so let's power on the machine. Let's go to controls. Okay, so we have laser CNC on and off. So looks like it's the same screen we had before. So let's go ahead and test out if this thing spins up by turning it on. And sure enough, it spun up. Okay, we'll turn it off. Now again, we're going to do the same thing, is we're going to center the blade right in the middle of the build plate, because when we slice it, this is where it's going to start. So, but before we do anything else, let's go ahead and go to the computer and slice a CNC file. Alright, so let's go back into Snapmaker and we'll go to the CNC part. We can see that it's pretty much looking like the laser, or at least the layout. So again, I'm not too familiar with this, but let's go here and just get this sample called CNC cut sign. We'll load it. And there we can see it. So it's really small, so let's go ahead and scale it up a bit. I'm not sure how big, maybe about this big. That looks more reasonable. So since we're happy with this, we'll click on process. So on the top we can choose the kind of blade we'll be using. So I guess we'll be using this first one, the V-bit, probably the easiest one to use. And we also have the flat type if we wanted to use that. So here under configurations, choose the carve path, the target depth, which is 1 millimeter right now, so we'll keep it at that. And then step down 0.5. Not sure exactly what that means. It might go, maybe that means that after 1 millimeter it'll go another 0.5. Jog height and stop height. Okay, so when it's moving around it's 1 millimeter above, and then when it's done it'll move up 10 millimeters. And so here we have the working parameters. We can adjust the speed. So it looks like it's pretty basic overall. So let's go ahead and generate the G code. So after we generate it, we can export it and then save the file. And then we'll move this file to the thumb drive and then into the machine. So yeah, overall looks pretty straightforward. So let's go ahead and try this out. All right, so now that we got our file into the USB thumb drive, let's go ahead and power it on. So I'm going to do the same thing we did for the lasers. We're going to go to controls here. Then we're going to set our origin to the middle of our project. Wherever we want it to carve is where we're going to put our tip down to. So we can go into jog mode and then adjust it to where we need it. So yeah, right now we're just trying to find the center. So I think that's pretty close right there. Now I'm not too exactly sure where to start, but I'm guessing you get your blade really close to the wood. So let's go down. So we do have our gauge here. It says also for CNC. So I'm going to go to more incremental. Okay, I'm starting to feel. So right here. So that should do it right there. And technically we can start our engraving. So let's go back, then click on files. And we can see here our CNC test. Let's click on that. And then start, and it should start up. Let's see what happens. Alright, something's happening. Okay, moved a bit. Okay, so for some reason it's quite a bit higher than it needs to be. Okay, so I did something wrong. Let's go ahead and cancel that. I think the thing I forgot to do is set the origin, so let's redo that again. I'm going to get it centered. Alright, and that's it. So I'm going to hit set origin. I think this is the part that I forgot to do. So let's try it again. See what happens this time. Okay, so it worked that time. So we can see that it's engraving into the wood. So now it's going a little deeper into the engraving. So first kind of did a light cut, now it's going a deeper cut. All right, and it looks like it's finished. So we can't really see much because we got a lot of dust there. So I got a vacuum here. Let's go ahead and vacuum the dust up. And now we can see the engraving a lot better. So let's go ahead and cut it loose. And by the way, guys, I did these clamps all wrong. Let me show you really quick how it's supposed to be. So you're supposed to use one bolt on the corner here, and the bolt should be level with whatever you're cutting into. And then this goes on top of the bolt, and then another bolt clamps it down. So this is the correct way of doing it, just like that. And then when you're done, you can just loosen it, and it's quite easy to take it off. So all right, and this is what it looks like. It's a little bit hard to see the cut, but it's a very, very nice high quality cut. So yeah, as you guys see, that this machine here is quite capable of doing the multi-functions without no issue at all. So as you can see, it's a pretty good machine that does the 3 different functions quite well, and can be really fun for a hobbyist or someone that just wants to prototype on the side, maybe some engineering and things like that. So it's really cool how you have 3 different tools to work with. Now with that being said, I don't think this printer, specifically the original, is for everyone, because it does have quite a small working area, and you know, it could be okay for some small projects, but anything larger would just not work, obviously. So if you are interested in a 3-in-1 machine like this one, I would highly recommend looking into their newer versions, which have quite significantly larger work areas and don't cost too much more over this. And because this is the original version, I'm sure the new one has been even more refined from this model. But overall, I feel like it did really good. The prints came out very decent. The laser quality is excellent, and the CNC also did great carving out. Now, I don't have too much experience with lasering or especially CNC, so I was a little nervous using it, but as you guys saw there, it's not too difficult, and it just kind of takes a little practice to get it right. And the most impressive thing to me was the build quality and all of the high quality materials that are in this machine. So the removable touchscreen display is really nice. All the heads are built very nicely with very high quality materials. Everything is pretty much metal. I did have a little bit of a wire issue with the heated bed, but that seemed to go away once I just moved it around. So, but other than that, if you're looking for a 3-in-1 machine, there's not too much to pick from, and this one seems to be a great choice compared to other ones that might be cheaper. But with that said, if you're more serious about doing individual things like 3D printing, laser, or CNC, performance and quality, if you buy individual machines. But of course, then, you know, you'd have to buy 3 of them, and you would have to have a lot of room for them. So the Snapmaker here is very unique as being a very small desktop 3-in-1 excellent build quality machine on the market right now. So if you're interested in this or just want more information, I'm going to have some links in the description. Check that out. And if you enjoyed this video, then hit that like button. If you want to see more videos like this and other things I do on this channel, there's a lot more stuff to come, so stay tuned. And also check out my pretty large extended playlist of 3D printers. You might find something interesting there. So as always, guys, thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one. Peace.